Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we are taking a look at the Dragon King's Cragblade, which is a weapon that you get from trading in the Remembrance of the Dragon Lord. You get the Remembrance of the Dragon Lord from killing Dragon Lord Placidusax in Farum Azula. I'm not going to put an image on screen showing the location of it because it is a bit tricky to get to. What I would recommend is just pulling up a video on how to get there. It'll do you much more good than a single picture would ever be able to do. So, yeah. That said, let's get started with the basics of the weapon. It requires 18 strength and 37 dexterity to wield. It weighs 8 units. The weapon is a somber weapon, so you are stuck with Thundercloud form for the skill, but I do not think that's a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a really good thing. It makes this weapon very fun to use, and it is a very satisfying thing to land. Aside from that, at plus 10, the physical base damage of the weapon is 225, and the lightning base is 144. It has a D-scaling in strength and a B-scaling in dexterity. Overall, it's a really great weapon. It's got a lot of standard pros that are common for the heavy thrusting sword class, but that's not much of a shock. It's a very powerful class of weapons, so let's get started with the thing that makes this weapon unique, being Thundercloud form. For starters, with that skill, it does have a great amount of hyper armor and a good amount of damage, but there are some things you need to keep in mind with it. First, Thundercloud form does not work with the Godfrey icon. In spite of the fact that the longer you hold the skill, the more it will charge, the more time you'll stay in the air, and the more damage you'll deal, it will not stack and work with the Godfrey icon, which is unfortunate, but understandable given how much damage this skill already does. Aside from that, though, it does actually work with the Spear Talisman, not just the weapon as a whole and the physical damage aspect of the weapon as a whole, but Thundercloud form specifically works with the Spear Talisman. So, you can use it to get counter hits. Very, very damaging counter hits. One way I found that is quite reliable to land the skill is if you see someone running towards you doing a jump attack. As soon as they jump into the air, just tap L2 and you'll hit them with Thundercloud form 90% of the time. It works extremely well. Another way that I've hit people with the weapon, specifically after it's been charged for a while, is after keeping pressure on them for a little bit and getting them to roll around, run away for a time, and waste some stamina, they eventually start to run low, and then you go for Thundercloud form. Basically, by keeping pressure on them, and then by going to Thundercloud form, a lot of people don't stop dodging, they just keep dodging and end up wasting their stamina. So it kind of freaks them out a little bit to see it coming at them, and I found that it is a very good way of keeping pressure on and taking advantage of said pressure. That said, that's Thundercloud form in a nutshell. Moving to the rest of the pros of the weapon, they are standard for the heavy thrusting sword class, being phenomenal running R2 attacks, both one-handed and two-handed. They cover an immense amount of distance and do a good amount of damage. Aside from that, two-handed jumping R2 will be able to combo into an R1 attack if you do land the initial jumping R2 attack. One thing that is nice with this weapon in particular is that it does deal split damage, so you can chip some damage through an opponent's shield if they are blocking. It's not a huge amount, but every bit does help. That said, there are of course better options. Just switching over to a weapon that has shield piercing would be better, but in the event that you don't have one, the split damage is doable. You can work with it. And then finally, I did mention that the Spear Talisman works with the weapon, but just to reiterate, the Spear Talisman works with the weapon across the board. It's a great thing to have. I would recommend it. And then finally, actually, for the PvE people watching the video, the weapon does deal 15% more damage against ancient dragons, and it deals 30% more damage against normal dragons. So, if you need to do a little bit of dragon slaying, keep this weapon in mind. It does a good job at it. Now that said, those are the pros of the weapon. It has a good moveset, it can turtle poke, it's got great running attacks with the running R2s, good combo with the jumping R2 into R1, and it can keep pressure on opponents extremely well. In addition, you've got Thundercloud form, which, as you guys have seen, is just great, and it's overall just really fun to use. So there's got to be something bad about the weapon. Excuse me. The big con of the weapon is really not that big of a deal. There are two, actually, and they're quite minor. The first big con of the weapon would be the fact that it does deal split damage. Yes, I said that it's nice that it deals split damage earlier on for the sake of chip damage through shields, but if this weapon did pure physical damage, it would be much more dangerous, to say the least. Aside from that, the only other con of the weapon that I can come up with personally is that it doesn't work with the Godfrey icon. It would be nice if it did, but again, it's one of those things I don't think it's necessary, but I do think that it should. Just because it is able to be charged, the attack does deal more damage when you charge it, and just, it would make sense that the Godfrey icon should work with it, but it is what it is. That said, it's really a great weapon. I don't have much more to say about it. The only thing worthy of note with it is that the R2s and the R2 cancel specifically, that is shared with the other heavy thrusting sword, the bloody whatever it is. I'm blanking on the second word. The Helix one. You know the one I'm talking about. I'm blanking on the actual name of the weapon. The Bloody Helix, we'll call it that. They share the same R2 as well as the Feint, the R2 cancel. So that's semi-unique, I suppose we can say. It's not truly unique because another weapon has it. Coincidentally, both of those weapons also weigh 8 units, if I'm remembering right. So there's that. But anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, found it helpful in one way or another. Please do like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Do all the YouTube things. It helps out the channel a lot. I really do appreciate it. Again, though, thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.